I almost declined the call. It was an unknown number, and I remember staring at my phone for a few seconds, feeling that familiar annoyance. I was busy, tired, and honestly, not in the mood to deal with whatever it was. For a moment, my thumb hovered over the red button. Sometimes I wonder how different my life would be if I had pressed it, because the person on the other side of that call ended up changing the way I see people and myself. And the strange part is, at the time, it felt like the most ordinary afternoon. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, the kind of slow weekday where everything feels slightly heavier than usual. I worked in a small logistics office just outside the city. Nothing glamorous, mostly spreadsheets, calls with drivers, tracking shipments that never seemed to arrive on time. Routine had a way of flattening the days. That afternoon, I had already dealt with 2 delayed deliveries and a customer who insisted the problem was somehow my personal fault. By the time 5 o'clock approached, I felt mentally drained in that quiet way that office work does to you. I packed my laptop, grabbed my jacket, and headed to the parking lot. The sky was turning that pale orange color that happens right before sunset. People were already pulling out of their spaces, engines humming, everyone eager to get home. I got into my car, tossed my bag on the passenger seat, and sat there for a moment. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it. My first thought was simple. Probably spam. My second thought, or someone asking for directions or wrong number. Whatever it was, it felt like one more thing demanding my attention when all I wanted was quiet. The phone kept ringing. 5 seconds. 6. 7. I remember sighing and thinking, if it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. My thumb moved toward decline, but for some reason, maybe curiosity, maybe habit, I answered instead. Hello? There was a brief pause, then a voice. Hi, is this Daniel? The voice sounded cautious, not robotic like telemarketers, not confident either, just uncertain. Yeah, I said. Who's this? Another pause. My name's Mark. I think I might have the wrong number. I leaned back in my seat. Okay, I said casually. No problem. Usually, that's where these calls end. But he didn't hang up. Instead, there was this strange silence on the line. Not awkward exactly, just lingering. Then he said something unexpected. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. I was just trying to reach someone and I guess I misdialed. No worries, I replied. Again, silence. At that point, I almost ended the call myself. But then he spoke again, this time more slowly. Can I ask you something kind of strange? I hesitated. Sure. He exhaled softly. Have you ever had one of those days where you feel like everything is just stacking up? That question caught me off guard. It wasn't what I expected from a wrong number. Yeah, I said after a moment. I think everyone has. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what I figured. Another pause. Normally, I would have ended the call right there. I didn't know this guy. I had no reason to stay on the phone. But something about his voice made me hesitate. He didn't sound drunk or unstable, just tired. Like someone who had been carrying something heavy for a long time. You okay? I asked, surprising even myself. There was a soft chuckle on the other end. Honestly, not really. For the next few minutes, the conversation moved slowly. Mark explained that he had been trying to call an old friend, someone he hadn't spoken to in years. I kept thinking maybe talking to him would help, he said, but I guess I misdialed. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just listened. He told me he had recently lost his job, that his father had been sick, and that things felt uncertain in a way he hadn't experienced before. Nothing dramatic, just life stacking pressure in quiet ways. I mostly responded with small things. Yeah, that sounds tough. I get that. Sometimes it feels like that. After a while, he laughed again. You know what's funny? He said. What? I almost hung up when you answered. Really? Yeah, I thought you'd be annoyed. I smiled a little. I almost declined the call. We both laughed. It was a strange moment. Two strangers who had almost avoided each other completely, now sitting on a phone call and neither of us expected. Then he said something that stuck with me. You know what the weird thing is? He said. What? Talking to someone who doesn't know you sometimes feels easier than talking to people who do. I didn't answer right away, because part of me knew exactly what he meant. When people know you, they expect certain versions of you. The strong one, the calm one, the one who has things together. But with strangers, those expectations disappear. You might be right, I said quietly. We talked for about 15 minutes. Nothing life-changing, just small observations about work, stress, family, and the strange pressure people carry without talking about it. Eventually, he said, I should probably let you go. Yeah, I replied, I should get home. But before hanging up, he said one last thing. Today was rough, and I was feeling pretty alone. Talking to someone helped more than you probably realize. Then the call ended. I sat in my car for a while after that. The parking lot had mostly emptied. The sky was darker now, and I kept thinking about how close I came to rejecting that call. Because to me, it was just another unknown number, a small interruption. But to the person on the other side, it was a moment where someone listened. And the strange thing was, the call affected me too. Because during that conversation, I realized something about how I had been moving through life. I had gotten used to filtering people out, ignoring unknown calls, avoiding small conversations, protecting my time. And while some of that makes sense, it also quietly narrows your world. You stop noticing people. You stop hearing small stories. You stop seeing the invisible struggles everyone carries. That call reminded me that behind almost every voice, there's a human story unfolding. Most of the time, we never hear it. A few weeks later, something interesting happened. I was walking out of a grocery store when an older man dropped a bag near the entrance. Apples rolled across the sidewalk. Normally, I might have just walked past, busy, focused. But that day, I stopped, helped him gather the apples. We talked for maybe 30 seconds. Nothing important, just small human interaction. But as I walked back to my car, I realized something. That random phone call had shifted something subtle inside me. It made me slightly more patient, slightly more curious, slightly more aware that every person you cross paths with is living a complicated life you know nothing about. And sometimes the smallest interactions matter more than we realize. I never spoke to Mark again. I don't know how things turned out for him, but I still think about that afternoon sometimes, about how close I came to pressing decline, because what seemed like a meaningless interruption ended up becoming a quiet reminder about human connection, about empathy, about how easy it is to dismiss people we don't know, and how often those small decisions shape our perspective more than the big ones. Now, whenever my phone rings with an unknown number, I still hesitate. Old habits don't disappear overnight. But sometimes I answer, not because I expect something important, but because once in a while, a random moment reveals something about human behavior we didn't notice before. And it makes me wonder something else. How many meaningful moments in life start exactly like that, with something we almost ignored?